All right, let's dive into what might be one of the biggest, fastest power shifts we've seen in tech. We're talking about the story of how the entire world of artificial intelligence got completely flipped on its head in just 2 years. So let's rewind the clock just a little bit, back to 2024. It feels like a lifetime ago in AI years, right? Back then, the landscape was, well, it was pretty simple. If you wanted the absolute best, the top-of-the-line AI models, there were only a few doors you could knock on. We're talking about a very exclusive club, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic. They were the giants, and pretty much everyone else was just trying to keep up. But then, fast forward to early 2026, and that whole structure, it's gone, completely shattered. The stranglehold these big labs had was broken. And that leads to the big question, the one we're here to answer. How? How on earth did a multi-year head start, held by some of the richest companies on the planet, just evaporate so quickly? Okay, so to really get this, we've got to first understand what that advantage even was. What was the secret sauce the giants had? And, maybe more importantly, why was it actually way more fragile than anyone thought? And this right here, this chart basically shows you their competitive moat. Back in 2024, if you were dealing with really complex stuff, the best proprietary models were a whopping 20 to 30 percentage points better than anything you could get from open source. That gap, that was their whole business model. It was what some people call intelligence arbitrage. It was the one thing they had that you couldn't get for free. And then, in just 2 years, look what happened. That massive gap, it collapsed. It shrank all the way down to a measly 2%. Which is basically nothing. It's statistically irrelevant. And this is the key takeaway, the whole point really. Raw intelligence, just being smarter, was no longer something the big labs could hide behind. It wasn't a defensible advantage anymore. So, the question is, how did this even happen? Who were the players that came in and just completely changed the game? Well, it really boils down to two things. One huge technological breakthrough and a couple of new, really aggressive players who weren't afraid to shake things up. That core technology is something called mixture of experts, or MOE for short. Now, the best way to think about it is like this. Imagine you're sick. The old way was like going to one general doctor who had to know everything about medicine. The MOE way is like going to a clinic with a whole team of specialists, a heart doctor, a brain doctor, a cancer specialist. This system is smart. It looks at your problem and says, this is a heart issue, and it only activates the cardiologist. This makes the whole process unbelievably efficient. And here's why that is such a massive game changer. The old dense models were just brute force. All 400 billion of their internal knobs, or parameters, would turn on for every single thing you asked it to do. It was incredibly wasteful. But with these new MOE models, you get all the knowledge of that huge 400 billion parameter model, but you only pay the computational cost of a tiny 17 billion parameter one. It's like getting a Ferrari's performance with a Toyota's gas mileage. It's the best of both worlds. So this new architecture got picked up fast, and there were really three key players that ran with it. First, you had Meta, who really pushed the limits with their Llama 4 series. Then there was DeepSeek, a company out of China that just came in and completely rewrote the rules on efficiency. And then, and this was a huge surprise, even OpenAI made a defensive play. They jumped into the open source game themselves, probably because they were terrified of developers abandoning their platform entirely. Okay, so now raw intelligence is basically everywhere. It's democratized. The big labs are in a tough spot. They had to figure out a new reason for you to pay their premium prices. So they pivoted. The sales pitch changed from our AI is smarter to our AI is safer and way more reliable. And that right there became the billion-dollar question for the entire industry. I mean, think about it. If you can get a free open source model that's 98% as good as the latest and greatest from OpenAI, why on earth would you pay for that last 2%? What are you actually buying? Well, the answer is something called the reliability cliff, and it's a huge deal. See, for a simple one-shot task, a model that's right 95% of the time sounds pretty good. But what if your task has, say, 100 steps? Well, that 5% chance of failure on each step compounds. It basically guarantees the whole thing will fall apart. But a model that's 99.9% reliable per step, that one will probably succeed. That tiny, tiny difference in reliability is everything. It's the difference between an AI agent that actually works and one that just crashes and burns. That's what they're selling you. Now, this whole shift had a massive, and I mean immediate, effect on the money side of AI. It's basic economics, right? When something this powerful becomes this easy to get, the price has only one way to go: down, and fast. So let's put some numbers on it. Back in 2024, if you wanted to use a top-of-the-line model, it would set you back about $10 for every million tokens it processed. And a token is basically just a piece of a word. Okay, now get ready for this. By 2026, that $10 price tag, it plummeted to just 14 cents. That's not a price cut, folks. That is a total collapse. It's commoditization. Raw AI intelligence became almost as cheap as flipping on a light switch. And you can bet that changed the calculation for every single business out there. All of a sudden, writing that huge monthly check to OpenAI for their API started to look, well, kind of silly. The new math was simple. You could just go out, buy your own powerful hardware, run one of these amazing open source models yourself, and the whole setup would pay for itself in just 3 months. Oh, and bonus? All your data stays in-house, completely private. But this whole economic earthquake didn't just stay locked up in corporate data centers. No way. It kicked off a brand new hardware race. And this time, the finish line was your desktop. It brought superintelligence right into our homes. And what we're seeing now are 3 pretty clear tiers of AI hardware. At the bottom, you've got your high-end consumer gaming PC, your RTX 5090s. They can run some really impressive, smaller models. At the very top, big companies still need those giant NVIDIA server farms for massive scale production. But the really interesting part, the new sweet spot is this middle tier that's popped up, the prosumer workstation. And this is where Apple, almost by accident, found itself with a massive advantage. You see, because of their unified memory design, a machine like a Mac Studio can load one of these gigantic 400 billion parameter models right into its main system memory. A regular PC, even one with a beastly graphics card, just can't do that. It gets bottlenecked by the limited amount of memory on the GPU itself, the VRAM. And just like that, the Mac Studio became the go-to machine for any developer wanting to mess with these huge models locally. So where does this all lead? What's the next chapter? Well, with raw intelligence being basically free, the new frontier, the real cutting edge, is moving past simple chatbots that just talk to you and towards complex agents that actually do things for you. And that's what we mean when we say agentic AI. We're talking about systems that can take on complex, multi-step goals all on their own. Think less coding assistant and more autonomous software engineer. A system that can manage a whole project, from the first line of code to the final deployment. That is the new high-end battleground. And honestly, this quote really just nails the new state of play. We are entering an era where good enough intelligence is totally free and everywhere. But that godlike agency, the power to actually do complex things reliably, that is still something you have to rent, and it's going to cost a premium. Which all leads to one final and kind of unsettling question. We're hearing rumors now that Meta's next big model might not be open source, that they might keep it locked down for strategic or safety reasons. And it makes you wonder, was this incredible 2-year explosion of free, top-tier AI the new normal? Or was it just a brief, beautiful golden age that, well, might already be over?